Welcome to r/Maliciouscompliance, where a clever young boy complies with his Karen mother. Our next Reddit post is from Kiki, by the way. Years ago, I worked for an awesome company that understood that workplace culture and fun was a huge part in keeping employees happy and productive. In our office, people would often bicycle to work and therefore needed to shower and get ready at work. This meant that sometimes they didn't get to their desk until after 9 a.m. However, nearly everyone worked extra when we had to deliver on deadlines. Management didn't care because they knew the work was getting done and everyone always gave 100%. Enter the new HR manager. We had never really had one before, but we were growing so we needed one. Within her first few weeks, she sent out an email saying that everyone needed to be seated and ready to go at 9 a.m. and that we needed to stop having social chats and get ready at work, or if we did, to do it earlier. She never acknowledged the fact that everyone put in unpaid overtime. Cue malicious compliance. Everyone would start at 9 a.m. as per her email and then leave at 5 p.m. Projects started running behind, and clients started getting pissed off because their product wasn't being delivered on time. The new HR manager was confused as to why work wasn't being delivered on time anymore. People were starting on time. She made sure of it. Needless to say, upper management removed the rule and she quit shortly thereafter. We all went back to our normal ways, and wouldn't you know it, projects were back on track. Don't walk into a new company and try to change something that isn't broken. The people will revolt. Down in the comments, we have this story from a lady. The best department manager I ever had came in, and when asked what he was going to change, he replied, "I'm going to spend a month seeing how things run. Then we'll expand upon the good and fix the bad." And beneath that, Von Moistus adds, "Don't rock the boat until you know what's keeping it afloat." Our next Reddit post is from Shallowish Puddle. I used to work at this one coffee shop, my first chain coffee shop after working only at local or family-run ones. Simply put, it was hell. The owners would micromanage everything without knowing anything about how the business ran. They never listened to their staff, and they only cared about the money. They were typical out-of-touch business owners. I was hired to replace a manager that had walked out of one of their locations, leaving it with only part-time staff. I was told I was being hired on as the acting manager until they either hired someone else or they felt that I would be a good fit for the position after my 6 months probation. I won't go into everything that went wrong because there's a lot to summarize, but it was literal hell. I was expected to cover all no-shows, which had me working 90 to 100 hours a week. I wasn't allowed to fire anyone no matter how many things they did wrong. Someone actually showed up to work drunk, and I still wasn't allowed to fire them. And any changes I wanted to implement were shot down, like replacing old parts in the espresso machine, shortening our hours to save money on labor, bringing in items that customers would always ask for, etc. I was stressed, overworked, and irritated as hell when the owner comes in to talk to me about sales for our store. We weren't making enough to warrant the hours I'd scheduled, and he wasn't going to pay me any more overtime. I would only work the hours I'm scheduled, and if someone no-showed, I had to have someone else cover those shifts. I tried to explain to him that I only came in when no one else would cover. And it just so happened that the people he allowed to continue working there had terrible availability. Covering the schedule was already hard enough. Getting someone other than me to come in on their day off was next to impossible. On top of all that, I had to learn the ropes myself. There was no one to train me, so all the managerial knowledge, ordering, scheduling, I learned myself. I was the only person who knew how to order more coffee or had the number for the repair guys. The only things the other employees knew how to do was just make coffee and use the till. The owner wasn't hearing any of it. "All I'm hearing is excuses. This is your store. If you can't handle running it, I'll start looking for someone who will." I said, "Wasn't that the plan though? It's been 3 months since my probation period ended and you never gave me the manager position. So I assumed you were looking for someone else to take over." "I think it's in your best interest to take some time off. Start thinking about your position here and whether you actually want to start moving up." "I can't. There's no one to cover me." "You're taking this time off." "Is this a paid break?" "No. Consider this a timeout for you getting yourself sorted. Take the 2 weeks to rest and we'll see what your position will be like when you get back." "Owner, I really can't afford to take that amount of time off. I can't even take 2 days off without having to come in and cover." "Don't worry about the business right now. It'll run without you." Now, to put this into perspective, I was basically the manager at that point. I made the schedules, I did the orders, I knew the codes to the safe and the alarm. I wasn't allowed to hire someone to assist me, and no one worked enough time to be able to cover even half of my shifts. I knew this, the staff knew this, even customers knew this. I made sure to block all my work numbers, and I spent those 2 weeks looking for another job. I managed to find one after a few days that paid significantly more. I sent my resignation email to the payroll and the owner, deleted my account off the POS system, and I spent the rest of the leave catching up on well-deserved sleep, having blocked all work numbers. I'm not getting paid, so I'm not working. According to my coworkers, things started going wrong the next day. One of the openers didn't show, and the next staff member didn't have keys. The owner wasn't answering his phone, so they left a message. The owner didn't show up until one of his regulars called asking if the place was closed down. The owner showed up 4 hours after they were supposed to open. Orders weren't placed, inventory went missing, there were 4 no-shows. You name it, it went wrong. The owner tried every way that he possibly could to get a hold of me. He even used a customer's phone to call me. Too bad I don't answer any calls that aren't on my contact list already. After 2 weeks, I turned my phone back on and I got a call the same day from the owner. We agreed to meet the next day. So, this guy. So, you've had some time to think. I have. It's really given me perspective on my position here. We can start you back on your normal hours for now, and we're looking for a manager to take on more of your responsibilities. Oh, that's good. I'm actually quitting. He was silent for a few moments. I think he was waiting to tell me that I was kidding. Sucks for you, buddy. I'm serious. I said, I've already emailed payroll and removed my login from the computer. Here are my keys. Good luck. And I left. The owner tried calling me a few times but stopped once I told him to check his email. I was on okay terms with some of the staff that worked there, and apparently the majority of them had quit after I left. The owner did find a replacement pretty quickly, but without anyone to train them, they were screwed from the get-go and left pretty soon after they were hired. I'm super petty, so I'm always checking reviews from customers and employees, and they have consistently sucked for the past year, and they seem to be on a downward trend over the past year. Alright, I'm gonna be honest with you. When OP came back after his 2 weeks vacation, I naively thought the manager was gonna eat crow. I was not expecting the owner to be smug and condescending. Like, dude, this is your money on the line. You bought this business, which means if it's not making money, you're just bleeding money. If I were in that manager's position, I would have doubled OP's salary and begged him to come back. Our next Reddit post is from File a Brother. Let me start off by saying that my wife, whom I love, is a bit of a Karen. She's not 100% a Karen, but years of modeling her own mother's behavior has created a mini monster that sometimes comes out when she doesn't get her way. The other person in this story is my son. He's 10 and completely devious. How devious? This morning I woke up and walked out to the kitchen to find an empty bag of semi-sweet chocolate chips on the counter that I didn't even know we had. Apparently it was bought for cookies at some point, and he hid them and has been eating them at night while he reads Minecraft fanfic on his Kindle. Okay, you have the characters. Now for the malicious compliance. On odd days, my son has chores to load the dishwasher after his little brother empties it. We have a household of 6, so we generate a lot of dishes. And we rotate the duties so nobody gets stuck doing them every day. The other day, my wife noticed that my son hadn't started the dishwasher after he loaded it. She got kind of huffy about it. Son, what's the point of loading the dishwasher if you don't start it? Now we'll be behind in dishes today. Being the sensible father I am, I suggested to my wife that perhaps we can provide our son with some sort of guidance on when exactly he should run the dishwasher. I was thinking she would give him a threshold of how many dishes or something. But my wife was only thinking about the inconvenience of the moment, and without thinking it through, she said, "Every time you do the dishes, you have to run the dishwasher." Cue yesterday morning. I came out for breakfast and my wife was grumpy. I asked what was wrong. She pulled open the dishwasher, and while it was clear that it was run, there was a single glass inside. You see, after dinner dishes were dried and put away, my son came down to get a glass of water. Knowing that he was making a dish and that it was technically still his day, he opted to load his dirty glass into the empty dishwasher, and remembering my wife's rule, he opted to follow it to the letter. I laughed. My wife was not amused, but even she had to admit that he only did what she told him to do. This reminds me of a story from my childhood. When I was really young, sometime in the summer, I had the air conditioning running in my room and I had one of my windows open. My dad came in, he saw that I was running the AC with one of the windows open and he got really pissed off. I don't know why, I guess he must have had a bad day at work or something, but it really set him off and he went on this angry rant. He was just screaming and yelling, and at the end of it he said, "Do you think I want to pay all this money to cool down the whole frickin' universe?" This whole time, I had been quietly listening to my dad's rant with my head bowed in shame. But when he said that, I couldn't help but let out a little laugh, and my smart-ass self came out and said, "But Dad, the universe is already cold." So I guess the too long didn't read of that story is I had to go sit in timeout. Our next Reddit post is from Kitharane. Many years ago, I worked in a small coffee shop on a university campus. Work was great, we had fun and we loved the owners. Unfortunately, after 2 years of working there, they retired. The new owner came in and he put up multiple cameras. He put up like 8 cameras in a 3 meter by 10 meter coffee shop with all the cameras trained on the counter in the staff areas. He also used to proposition the girls. We were all university students, so we were 17 to 21 years old. He said that they would get extra shifts if they went home with him. If you argued with them, then you would get your work hours cut to the bare minimum. A couple of months in, he decides that he's going to change the uniform. Our uniform was previously just a loose black polo shirt with a cafe logo, black pants, and closed shoes. Standard coffee shop staff attire. He decides that the uniform would change, but only for the girls. Now the girls have to wear a midriff top with the cafe logo and low-rise pants. The boys still get to wear the old uniform. We argued that this was unsafe because you can't put hot coffee and plates of food next to bare skin. But we got told, too bad, so sad. So the staff got together and hashed out a plan. The first day of the new uniform, the girls showed up in the old uniform. The boys showed up in the midriff tops and the low-rise pants. The new uniform policy lasted 1 hour. The boss was not impressed. No one lost their job because our coffee shop was right next to the law faculty. One of the students had already had a conversation with her lecturer about what was going on. I'm pretty sure that if we'd been fired for non-compliance with uniform, that the boss would have found himself in far more trouble. This guy tried to bribe girls coming back to his house with extra shifts. Like, it's bad enough that he's slimy, but he's also got to be cheap and slimy. Our next Reddit post is from Liability Landon. So after I graduated college, I went back to work at my high school job at a large auto parts chain. I have a few stories of malicious compliance from there because it was a miserable place to work with miserable management, but I think this one takes the cake. I lived about 15 minutes from the store, and I would routinely work 1 to 2 hours past my shift to help the manager close up and tally cash sale receipts, as well as take out the trash, prep and stage the first deliveries for the next morning, as well as sweep the storefront. I didn't mind doing these things because I got a little bit of overtime out of it. I got in the good graces of my manager, or so I thought. And even though my drive home was short, staying a little late and letting traffic die down was fine with me. One morning I walked in at about 9:07 when my shift was scheduled to start at 9. I didn't see what the big issue was since I'd been staying late every day for months helping my manager close the store. But my manager apparently took issue with it that day. It would have been fine if he had said something along the lines of, "Hey, OP, you're late and I know you worked long yesterday, but let's still get here on time." But that isn't what he said. He flew off the handle and went on about needing to work your schedule. And we have schedules for a reason. And you need to be at work for the schedule that I made for you. Well, needless to say, since I've been staying late for months to help him close the store, despite it not being on my schedule, this rubbed me the wrong way. And for clarity, it's against store policy to have only one person working in the store at a time. So I convinced myself that instead of causing a scene and yelling, I would just do exactly what he said. So 5:30 rolls around, and I stood in front of the computer until it hit 5:30 exactly, clocked out, and started walking towards the door. "Where are you going?" "Home." "What? Why? Who's gonna help me close the store tonight?" "I don't know, but you made it very clear that I was supposed to work my schedule." So I get off at 5:30. It's now 5:30 and I'm going home. And I walked out. The next morning I got there at 8:55 and I just stood in front of the computer until it hit 9 o'clock. Phone's ringing. Too bad my shift hasn't started. Deliveries need to go out? Sorry, I'm not on the clock yet. I clocked in at 9 o'clock and then clocked out at 5:30. I had the same conversation as the day before about who was going to help my manager close. The third morning I walk in and my manager waits for me to clock in and then pulls me aside to talk to me. You know, I think we can overlook a few minutes in the morning if you stay and help me close. Oh, interesting. I thought I was supposed to just work my schedule. Yeah, well, I guess we can overlook that. I had very few problems with this manager after this little exchange. That was r/maliciouscompliance, and if you like this content, check out my podcast where I publish extra episodes. Also, hit that subscribe button because I put out new Reddit videos every single day.